Hello, I'm Mike Moore, and welcome to the How to Win podcast. These podcasts are based off 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 14. It says, "Now thanks be unto God who always causes us to triumph in Christ Jesus." This is how to win. God wants us to win in life. This is my leadership edition. I want to welcome all of you that are taking this leadership journey with me. And I'm telling you, I am in a series that I know is going to bless you in your leadership stewardship. I'm teaching a series. It's a 3-episode series entitled Great Leaders Have Big Ears. Great leaders have big ears. And the theme of this series, this transformative series, is on listening. Listening as a leader. Our background text is taken from James chapter 1, verse 19. And these lessons are based off biblical principles. God spoke to me many years ago, and he said the word of God is the answer. And I realized that it is not just the answer for the individual or the follower, but it's the answer for leadership and for the leader. So these lessons are based off of the Bible. Our background text for the entire series is James chapter 1, verse 19, and I want to read it to you from the Message Bible. It reads, "Post this at all intersections, dear friends. Lead with your ears, follow with your tongue, and let anger straggle along in the rear." Isn't that a powerful text? Lead with your ears, follow with your tongue, and let anger straggle along in the rear. We're in lesson number 2 of this series. In lesson number 1, episode number 1, we talked about why listening is important. And if you did not get that, I want you to go back. You can go to Mike Moore Ministries. You can go to YouTube and you can get that first episode. Why is listening important? In this second lesson, and we have subtopics for each lesson, each episode, we're going to talk today about when leaders don't listen. When leaders don't listen. In other words, we're going to talk about the consequences of not listening. What are the consequences if you as a leader don't listen? I want to share a Bible text about an individual named Rehoboam. Rehoboam was the son of Solomon. He was Solomon's successor. And we're going to see a text where he rejected good advice, good instructions. So I'm going to read parts of the text, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about when leaders don't listen. So in 2 Chronicles, and I want you to make a note of this, 2 Chronicles chapter 10, verse 1, then verse 6 through 8, and then verses 13 through 15. And you want to go back and listen, read the whole chapter, 2 Chronicles chapter 10. So beginning in verse 1, it says, Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel had gone to Shechem to make him king. And here's what the advisors or the people said to Rehoboam. Now remember, he's just getting ready to succeed his father Solomon. He's the new king. And the followers said to Rehoboam, your father made our yoke heavy. Now, therefore, lighten the burdensome service of your father and his heavy yoke, which he put on us, and we will serve you. Now, what the people were referring to is under Solomon, King Solomon was a very wise king, but he laid heavy taxation on the people. He was a great builder, heavy taxation on the people, and his labor practices were burdensome. So the people said, now we want to serve you just like we serve your daddy, Solomon. But we want you to lighten the load on us. We want you to reduce the taxation. We want some better working conditions because it was heavy. So Rehoboam consulted two sets of advisors. He consulted the elder advisors, and then he consulted a young group of advisors. So listen what it says. Then King Rehoboam consulted the elders. This is verse 6. Then King Rehoboam consulted the elders who stood before his father Solomon while he still lived, saying, how do you advise me to answer these people? Now, he went to the older advisors. These advisors had actually served under Solomon. So he went to them first and he asked, the people are asking us to lighten the load and reduce the taxation. And how do you advise us to answer the people? Here's what the elder advisors said. They spoke to him saying, if you are kind to the people and please them and speak good words to them, they will be your servants forever. That was great advice. That was great advice. They said, now listen, Rehoboam, king, if you just be kind to the people, if you lead them in kindness and please the people, and the word please doesn't refer to being a people-pleasing leader, but it refers to or speaks to considering the interests of the people. Just consider their interests. Just consider their interests. Just consider their welfare. And then speak to them with respect, good words. That's good advice. And they said they'll serve you forever. But he rejected the advice which the elders had given him and consulted the young men who had grown up with him. In other words, he went to his peers, young advisors who didn't know anything, did not have the experience that the elder advisors had, but he went to his peers and he asked them, how do you advise me? And here's what they said. The king, he consulted the young men who had grown up with him, who stood before him. Then the king answered them roughly. King Rehoboam rejected the advice of the elders, and he spoke to them according to the advice of the young men, saying, now this is what the advice that the young men gave him. Now remember, the elder advisor says now, be kind to them, be concerned about their interests, speak to them respectfully, and they'll serve you forever. But here's what he accepted. Here's what the young advisors advised him. My fathers made your yoke heavy, but I will add to it. My fathers chastened you with whips, but I will chasten you with scourges. So the king did not listen to the people. The young advisor said, listen, no, you don't lighten up. Make it harder on them. You got to be strong, Rehoboam. You got to be tough. Don't make it light on the people. Make it hard on the people. And the Bible says that he rejected the advice of the elders, listened to the advice of the young advisors, his peers. And guess what happened? There were 12 tribes at the beginning of his reign. When he took the advice of the younger advisors, his peers, the people revolted. 10 tribes left, leaving Rehoboam with 2 tribes, 2 out of the 12. The people literally said, we are not going to submit to abusive authority, insensitive authority. We will not accept it. Now, that is true in our today's reality. It is important that we, as leaders, operate in kindness. You don't have to have a degree. You don't have to have a lot of experience to be kind to people. We should speak to our followers, our team, our staff, our employees, our volunteers with respect. And we should be concerned about their welfare, their interests, the climate, the culture. That's good advice. Now listen at this. So what happens? We see what happened in Rehoboam's situation. But what happens when followers feel like their leaders are not listening to them? What happens when followers being employees, volunteers, customers, members of your church, what happens when followers feel that their leader does not listen to them? Listen at this. It kills morale. That's what happens. It kills morale. It kills their engagement, the followers' engagement. It kills their passion. It kills their motivation. It kills their excitement. If you want to destroy the excitement of your followers, don't listen to them. It kills their loyalty. 10 tribes left. Listen, if you don't listen to your followers, it's going to destroy their loyalty. It kills their commitment. Now, here's a powerful summary statement. Now, listen to it carefully. When followers feel that they are not listened to, they will turn to others who they think will or leave. Wow. Now, we're going to pause with that statement. We're going to pause here. We're going to pause with that statement for a moment. When followers feel that they are not listened to, they will turn to others who they think will or listen. Now, let's pause. When your followers, that can be your team, that can be your volunteers, that can be your employees, that can be your congregation if you're a pastor, it can be customers if you are a business person, that can be your students if you're an educator. When followers feel that they are not listened to, they will turn to others who they think will listen. So when employees feel that their employer or their supervisors don't listen, they're going to turn to somebody else who will. And they'll turn to other employees and they'll tell other employees their complaints. They'll give their complaints to people who can't help them. They'll give their complaints to somebody else. They'll give their complaints to customers. Or they'll leave. That's the bottom line. Why? Because people need to and want to be heard and understood. People need to and want to be listened to, understood, and heard. They want to be heard. People want to be heard. I'm not saying that as a leader you have to agree with everything the followers want or need or desire, but they need to be heard and they need to be understood. Because if they feel that you don't hear them or you don't listen to them, they're going to turn to somebody else who they think will listen, or they will quit. And you cannot be successful if people are quitting all around you. And a little empathy will reveal what I'm saying to you. So what do leaders miss when they don't listen? What do leaders miss when they don't listen? Leaders miss the opportunity, number one, to learn something new. They miss the opportunity to learn something new. What do leaders miss when they don't listen? Number one, they miss the opportunity to learn something new. And there are a lot of things, leader, that you could learn. Now watch this. In this, my edition of leadership, I wanted to share with you quotes by great thinkers. I wanted to share with you statements, insights, articles, books, and then from my own experience of 42 years and 8 months as being a pastor. That's a long time. So I wanted to share. So from time to time, you hear me give quotes, and I got a great quote here. What do leaders miss when they don't listen? Leaders, number one, they miss the opportunity to learn something new. Steve Jobs is quoted as saying, and this is powerful. Now listen. Steve Jobs once said, it doesn't make sense to hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they will tell us what to do. Isn't that powerful? That is powerful. He said, we don't hire smart people and tell the smart people what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. And you know, that just makes good common sense. Why are you hiring smart people? And you should hire people that are smart. You should hire somebody, bring somebody on the team that know more than you know in a particular area. That's just wisdom. It broadens your perspective. But why are you going to bring somebody on the team? Why are you going to have a volunteer to help you that's bringing experience and knowledge in their field, and you don't listen to them? And he said it didn't make sense to him to hire smart people, and then we tell them what to do. He said we hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. So what do leaders miss when they don't listen? Number two, they miss insight that might help them be more effective. They miss insight that might help them be more effective. Number three, what do they miss? Leaders miss alternative perspectives. They miss alternative perspectives. What do leaders miss? Number four, they miss context, which helps them to make sense of the situation. They miss context. Often we hear one side of a matter and we just run off on one side of the matter, but we don't hear the context of what was said. And then I learned this years ago that there are always two sides to every story. So leaders miss, number 4, context, which helps them to make sense of the situation. Number 5, what do leaders miss when they don't listen? They miss the opportunity to communicate respect. And I had a question that was asked of me. Why is it important to listen? And what is the main purpose of listening was another question. And in one of those answers, I said, listening communicates respect. When you don't listen, leader, then you miss the opportunity to say to others, I respect you. I respect your experience. I respect your position. I respect your the value that you're bringing to me and to this endeavor and to this organization. I respect you. And when you don't listen to people, you miss that opportunity to communicate respect. However, I got good news for you. It is possible for leaders to turn things around and become a good listener. It is possible to turn things around. In our first episode, I said that there was a survey taken out of 14,000 employees around the world, and only 8% of those 14,000 employees said that they believe that their mid and senior level leaders are good listeners, which implies 92% felt that their leaders and the leadership were not good listeners. Well, if you fall in the 92%, okay, the good news is that you can turn things around and become a good leader, good listener, because listening is a skill that can be learned and developed through knowledge and practice. Listening is a skill. It's a skill that can be learned and developed. So you can develop your listening skills through knowledge. And that's what I'm attempting to give you, knowledge. These 3 episodes, we want to lay the foundation of knowledge for you. Why it's important? What do you miss when leaders don't listen? The consequences. And then we're going to get over into giving you more tips to leading. We want to give you knowledge because it can be developed. Listening skills can be developed. The listening skill can be developed through knowledge and practice. You're going to have to practice what we're communicating to you. You're going to have to put it to practice. It's not enough to just listen to this stuff. You got to put it into practice. Jack Zinger and Joseph Folkman created a framework that they call 6 levels of listening. 6 levels of listening. And in my closing, in this latter part of the episode, I want to give you what they call the 6 levels of listening. Level 1, you create a safe environment where pretty much anything can be discussed. You create the environment. You create a safe environment. That's level 1, where people can discuss anything. They can talk about anything. Level 2, you put away distractions, telephones, cell phones, laptops. You make appropriate eye contact with the other person. Level 2, you're going to put away the distractions. Cell phones, laptops, anything that distract you, and you're going to make appropriate eye contact with the other person. Level 3, you try to understand the main focus of what the other person is saying. What is the main you gotta concentrate, and we're gonna talk about that in my conclusion. You gotta focus on what people are saying. And what is the main focus of what people are saying? Level 4, you pay attention to non-verbal cues. You pay attention to non-verbal cues, such as body language, facial expression, tone of voice. If you think about it for a moment, we don't just communicate with words. We communicate with our body language. I was talking to my daughter, Tiffany. She's the director over my podcast. She's the director over this podcast. And I mentioned this to her that I use a lot of hand movement in my communication. Hand movement in my communication. Well, when people are communicating to you, there's a lot of body language, and we communicate more so in our physical body language, tone of voice, facial expressions than we do verbally. And so if you're just listening to the verbal expression of what is communication, you're going to miss out on a lot. You need to look for the nonverbal cues, the body language, facial expressions, tone of voice. Level 5, you understand the emotions and feelings of the other person, and you acknowledge them. If you're really astute in your listening and look beyond just the words, but connect to the words, the body language, the physical cues, but this level instructs us to understand the emotions and the feelings of the person. When you're listening, what is the person feeling? Is it anger? Are they feeling disappointment? Is this person feeling disappointment? Is it hopelessness? Is it excitement, energy? Is it a desire to get involved? What is the feelings and the emotions of the people? That's level 5. And then level 6, you ask good questions. Questions that are designed to let the other person see a perspective or challenge their assumptions that they may not have. So listening isn't just about agreeing. No, we're not saying that listening means you're going to agree with the other person, because in this level, you're going to ask questions, and your questions are going to be designed to let the other person see a perspective that they don't have, a new perspective, or a challenge that they a challenge and assumption that they may have. But even though you are introducing a new perspective, you're also challenging an assumption that they have. That's not bad, because the person can see that you're listening to what they're saying. So I think you ought to go back and listen to this framework, 6 levels of listening. Now, I want to conclude this episode, and I trust that you're getting something out of this. Great leaders have big ears. When leaders don't listen, Allow me to give you some concluding remarks. Listening, here's the first one, and hearing are two different things. Listening and hearing are two different things. The great apostle Paul had an encounter that transformed his life on the Damascus Road in Acts chapter 9. You have to read other chapters in the book of Acts because Paul rehearses what happened on that Damascus Road. And in several places it says that he heard the Lord speaking to him. Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Saul, Saul. He heard those words, and he heard instructions given to him from Jesus, the head of the church. But it says that those around him, because there were other soldiers and people with him persecuting the church, the Bible said they heard a voice, but they didn't understand what was said. They heard a voice. Now, Paul, he heard something with clarity, and others, they heard a voice, but they didn't know exactly what was said. So listening and hearing are two different things. We're not talking about just hearing, we're talking about listening. Hearing doesn't require effort. Doesn't require any effort. That's why, guys, we can be looking at a sports event and our wife can be talking to us and they want us to listen, and what we're doing is hearing. And we'll say, yeah, I hear what you say. Yeah, I hear what you say. But they don't want hearing. They want listening, because hearing doesn't require effort. It is an unconscious hearing. It's an unconscious act of letting sound enter your ears. On the other hand, listening is purposeful. Listening involves conscientious effort. It is purposeful. When you're listening, you have purpose. When you're listening, it requires conscientious effort, because there are reasons why you're listening. At least 4 reasons why you listen to any person. Number 1, you listen to understand someone. Second, you listen to enjoy someone. Thirdly, you listen to learn something. And then fourthly, you listen to give help to someone. So if you're listening to understand, or you're listening to enjoy, or you're listening to learn, or you're listening to give help, then you have to be purposeful, and you have to have conscious effort to listen. Listen requires a willingness to listen, but it also requires intentionality. You got to want to listen. In fact, you got to want to develop your skills, and you can learn. Now, remember, you're going to take this survey, but it requires some effort, willingness, intentionality. And here's a quote that I'll end with. And I try to make a note and log some of this information that I'm giving you from others, but for whatever reason, I missed out on who made this quote, but it's good. It's good. Maybe I'll mention it, the author later. But here's a quote. Great communication is more about hearing others, and I believe this author was talking about listening to others, more than it is about hearing yourself. It's more about hearing others than hearing yourself. Think about that. So listening is not just about listening to yourself, it's about listening to others. Now, this concludes our second episode, but remember, I want you to evaluate yourself as a listener. I asked you to do that in the first episode. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being an outstanding listener, I ask you to grade yourself. Now, we're going to do it again at the end of the series, but I also ask you, because we have blind spots, if you have others that's following you, and you may be a parent, or you may be a husband, or you may be a wife, you're in leadership positions, you can ask family members to give you a grade on how good of a listener you are. If you have direct reports, you have followers, customers, whoever it is, you want to get some information using this scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being a good listener. Ask people to grade you. That will give you some feedback. That will give you some information. Listen, I have to close this episode. I trust that you've been blessed. I know I'm being blessed, because we can all learn. You know, my wife and she's my very best friend. 44 years of marriage, but she told me, you can listen. You can learn to listen better. Okay, so we can all learn and grow and develop our leadership skills, communication skills, and especially our listening skills, because great leaders, come on, say this, great leaders have big ears. Thank you so very much. I look forward to seeing you next time.